Hey everyone, it's Ian Koniak, and today I'm going to share the proposal template I use to close over $100 million in sales in my career. And I'm going to share how to tell stories when you're presenting to senior executives and doing a readout in your proposals. And let's get into it right now. So what I want to share is something called the Story Mountain. And the Story Mountain is essentially the way that executives at entertainment companies and authors tell stories. And this is the exact same principle that I use for my proposals that I create. If you know how to tell a story in your presentations, you're going to evoke emotion, you're going to get people connected, they're going to remember it better. So you really want to learn how to use these principles for your presentations. And we're going to talk about how to use it at the end of a presentation when you're ready to present and ask a customer to buy. So let's get into it. The first step of storytelling is exposition. This is where we're going to introduce the characters of the story and we're going to introduce the setting. The next part of a story is the rising action. And if you notice, this part of the story is the longest part. Typically, when you watch a movie, it's all about overcoming adversity and all of the obstacles that the hero of the story has to overcome. Okay. The next part of the story is the climax, which is when the story reaches a critical turning point. Tension is at its greatest point, and the problem is directly confronted, either in a good way or a bad way. But it's really the peak of the story. After that comes the falling action, and that's really the easing of tension because the problem is being resolved, like I said, in a good or a bad way, bringing the story to the close. And the final section is the resolution. This is everything working out for better or worse, right? And ending with the character or the narrator reflection. So let's talk about how this relates to sales. When you put together a proposal, what you really want to do is you want to start by introducing the characters and setting, which is them. They are the characters of their own story. The story in a sales presentation is about them. It's not you. Many people make the mistake of talking about you and your company and the product and all the features and the pricing. That's a big mistake. You really want to make it about them, and you want to start with their vision and goals. Once upon a time, there was a company and they were trying to get #1 market share. Okay. But, right. So you're introducing the company and now comes the challenges. But they had competitors that were, rapidly catching up to them. And they had another company that they were trying to, compete with, and they were losing left and right. They also had, their growth had stalled. I'm making this up as I go, but you're introducing the challenges that they're facing that are preventing them from reaching their goal and their vision, right? The vision is really, here's where you're trying to go as an organization, and then the challenges and the pain are the rising action. Here's all the obstacles that you're faced with. So this is the section where you say, these are the things we heard, right? You're trying to go here, but you're losing market share. Competitors are, chomping at your feet. And here's what people are saying. Here's what customers are saying. Here's what your employees are saying, right? You want to grab some quotes that you heard from Discovery, and include that. And the purpose of this is to create a lot of tension and a lot of pain. So when essentially you're twisting the knife a little bit. So when you finally introduce your solution, which is how you can help, right? They're ready for it emotionally. It's like, great, you've told us why our baby's ugly. You've told us why, what we're doing is not working. How are you going to fix it, right? This is where you now say, hey, there is a better way. We can help you. So in the story that I'm sharing, it's once upon a time, there was a company trying to get to #1 market share. However, they had competitors that were introducing innovative products. They were, their growth had stalled and their employees were leaving. Then one day they were introduced to Salesforce, and Salesforce had a way to help them grow their market share by empowering their sales reps to sell more effectively, to reach new people, to grab leads, to whatever it is that you're going to help them with that addresses directly the challenges and the pain points that they're trying to solve, right? So that's the time when you introduce your solution. Okay, now once you show them the solution in the demo, now it's time to show them what the investment is. And that's where the falling action is easing the tension, right? So you're showing your solution, you're getting them bought in mentally, and then you're saying, here's what the investment is, here's what the ROI or the business case looks like, here's what the rollout plan looks like, and here are a few customer stories that look like you. And this gives customers a lot of assurance that they're not the first ones that are doing this, right? That there's going to be a good return on investment that they can justify, that you've thought about implementation and change management and training, right? It eases the tension because you have a plan as to how you can make them successful with your solution. And then the end of that, which is really the time for reflection or discussion, is your mutual success plan or your mutual action plan where you can outline next steps. So this is called the story mountain. Now, if you wait till the end of this video, I'll share my killer proposal template. And the killer proposal template is literally a sequence of slides you're going to insert, and I'll give you this template into your presentation so you know the order of which chapters to put into the story. So the killer proposal template starts with the team. You're introducing you and your team. You're sharing the journey you've been on to build credibility, sharing how much you've been working with them already to get to this point. You introduce the vision and the goals that they're trying to go through. You restate the challenges and pain points and what you heard during discovery. You share some quotes about their situation, especially if it's negative. And then you ease some tension with hey, you're not the first ones who've said this. This is a common problem, and you share some of the challenges that their industry is facing. You pivot to the executive summary, and you're going to share how you're going to help them. You show the solution, you show the demo, you show the investment, you go over the business case, you share the implementation and the training plan to put them at ease. If there's an architecture you have to talk about for the future state, you can share that as well, or a relevant customer story. And finally, next steps and mutual action plan. Now, if you notice, some of these are optional. If your deal's small and it's not as complex, you haven't done as much discovery, you can remove some of the slides that are not relevant to to your proposal. But ideally, you want to have most, if not all of these for any large deal. It works really well. It gets them emotionally connected. And if you're using, if it's a really big deal, I like to put this on their deck. I like to use their template versus something that says my company name, because it looks like they prepared it versus you prepared it. Okay. It looks more neutral. I'll show you one sample presentation. If you go into my coaching and you train with me, I'll give you all my templates, all my presentations, everything I've done. But for the sake of time, I'll just show you one. This was a large deal I closed at Salesforce. It was a big credit bureau, and their goal was to deliver an effortless customer experience. And this is what it looked like. So I started with, the shared journey, which is the original slide. This shows how much time we invested with them. It was a 6-month engagement. We did 25 discovery sessions over 5 months with our extended team. So you really want to, especially when you're meeting with executives or senior leaders, you want to demonstrate that you've done your homework, that you've spent time with them, that you understand their business. This slide builds credibility. Next, I outlined their key goals in detail around driving growth, improving net promoter score, and delivering exceptional CX. Those are their top goals and outcomes. But the challenge was they had very low NPS. This was a call center that was trying to, get great customer experience so they could cross-sell and upsell and they could retain their clients. But the challenge was a lot of clients were leaving and they were frustrated because they were trying to reduce costs in the call center. So they deployed what's called an IVR, which is interactive voice recognition. It's basically robotic service, and people were getting hung up on. They couldn't reach the, live support. It was actually doing more harm than good. They also had an extremely high call volume because they introduced a new free offering, and they didn't have live supports. They made a decision that the free customers would only be supported by the automated service, and that was actually causing a lot of frustration with clients, and they weren't hitting their growth goals. And finally, they didn't have any way to digitally support these these customers. There were no chatbots or live chat. There was no online case submission, and they didn't have a knowledge base peer to peer. So again, we gave this presentation to them. This is the challenge slide. Right. I kind of put some humor in here and said this is a common problem. And then I did some industry research and showed them, hey, you guys are actually approaching this the wrong way. Delighting the customers is actually not where you should be spending your time. You shouldn't be investing all this money into a call center to support all these customers. It doesn't pay off. The reality is, as long as you meet the customer expectations, right? They're okay. It doesn't create more loyalty when you exceed it, right? It's the same amount of spend and the same amount of loyalty. And I cited some research from the Effortless Experience. And then I challenged what they were doing. I said the mere act of contacting service is what's driving disloyalty. If they have to call for support because they can't figure it out on their own, right? That's actually what's driving down your NPS. And so rather than trying to focus all this money on the call center to be able to solve their issue in a call center, focus on reducing effort. Okay. If you reduce effort, that actually makes it easier to work with them. Think about Amazon, how easy it is to return a product, right? Everyone's loyal because it's easy to work with them. The drivers of disloyalty are the things you're doing. It's the channel switching, the robotic service, the hassle factor. Literally, the things you're investing in are the things that are driving disloyalty. And if you want to increase NPS, the best way to do it is to actually reduce effort, right? And people that make it easy to handle the issue are the ones that have the best customer retention. And that's what we're going to do is we're going to help you build a business case for an effortless experience where they can repurchase, spend more, reduce the negative word of mouth, and reduce the disloyalty and the churn. And now we pivot to the climax, right? So that whole part was like building up to the climax. And the climax is, hey, customers prefer digital self-service. They want to try to fix things on their own before they call into a call center. And this is where Salesforce can help. We're going to help you improve NPS, drive growth, and deliver an effortless customer experience by enabling digital self-service that powers all customers to receive exceptional support when and where they need it. So again, now you're the helper. Now you're, the ones who are easing the tension. This is the climax. Then I show the solution. So that's the executive summary slide. I show the solution, help customers self-serve, connect to your back office, and offer peer-to-peer support where they can get quickly resolved from an internal forum similar to a Reddit. I showed how this would all flow. Customer wants to reach out on their site, get chat support, and if they can't be automated through the bot, then they get connected to the call center. I even shared my own support experience where I got hung up on in their member portal. I couldn't find the answers. I couldn't log in, and I ended up not buying their product. So I went through a silent shopper experience to show them how poor the support was. And this was on, a call with 15 people, VP and C-suite. And I was like, here's what happened, right? Very matter of fact. And that was my experience. I proceeded to do the demonstration, showed them the examples of people that had a similar community that was deployed on Salesforce. We showed them a economic study to show that the average customer sees a 50% reduction in service desk tickets when they deploy the portal and the self-service tool, and a 39% higher net promoter score. And then I showed them a business case, specifically showing $300,000 a month in savings just from opening the digital self-service channel. And finally, the next steps to scope out the business case in further detail, implementation, and review the proposal with them in more detail. So this was the actual presentation that I gave. It led to a very large deal. And if you want to have the killer proposal template, if you want to get the exact order of all the slides that I just shared, you can click right here. You can download killer proposal template. If you use this, I promise you will have a much higher close rate. My close rate was about 75% for the deals that I engaged with. And on average in tech sales, it's about 35%. So this is really what I used. It works great. I hope you enjoy it. And I will see you guys at the next one. Take care.